Some city classic cars. We're looking at the 1956 sedan delivery. I'm sitting down so we can look at some things low and close here. Now, what's the process when you start talking about doing classic car paint and body? What is the difference in how we do it? What is the difference in how collision shops do it? What's the difference? And what do we mean when we say it's a restorative paint and body process? Well, the first thing that has to happen on a vehicle, you have to get back down to what I call the butt naked truth. So there's a previous video here where I talk about getting down to the white meat of the metal. So this car has gotten down to the white meat of the metal, and that's a little bit of it there that's not in epoxy yet. So that's white meat metal. This whole car was went all the way down to the white meat metal. Now, at the time we had glass and all that in here. The process that we used was an 80 grit paper. We use an 80 grit. In some places where Bondo is kind of thick, we use just a 36 really quick, just to break up the Bondo. And then, but that's too coarse, so you want to use an 80 grit. So you get down to the white meat metal. Once you get down to the white meat metal, then you want to seal the car. First, you want to look the car over. We looked it over. This car has been restored once before. So the fact that it's been restored once before, it's in great condition from a metalworking perspective. So once you get it down, you look it all over and you see what you have going on as far as a rust concern here. This is not a rust bucket. This is a great car to restore. The second thing, after you do that, get it down to the white meat and look it over, then you want to put it in an epoxy primer. I use epoxy primer. Some people use self-etching primer. I don't like self-etching primer. Epoxy primer has some etching qualities in it. So I recommend a high quality epoxy primer. The epoxy primer we use is a high quality price, about $200 a gallon, something like that. But that's what we use to seal our products. And the epoxy primer comes in different colors. We like black because we use a 2K primer as far as primer, which is great. So it lets us quickly see what stage the car is in, things of that nature. So that's why I use black. That's the only aspect of that. So we see not many metal concerns here, just some, I'll say some restoration imperfections. So this gap here is off. So we're going to address this gap and see how it stops there. So we got to make this gap true. We want to make that gap true. On the other side, it's a little bit truer. It's not as off as much as this. So the fender and all that sits right. Then we got some issues here on this door we're going to address. Now this is metal work. All this is also part of the metal process. See that gap is wrong. There's some hinge concerns in the back, but the overall metal on the car as it pertains to rust, it's great. Now we'll do some hammering, dialing, just a little bit. But then we come with what some people hate to use. They hate to talk about the word Bondo. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the word Bondo. Now, so a lot of people say, well, I don't use Bondo, I use 3M. Well, 3M has the trademark on the term Bondo. 3M is the one who came up with the term Bondo, and they have the trademark on the term Bondo. But the reason Bondo has received a bad reputation and a bad name is because it has been misapplied. Individuals put it on too thick, and then that lends itself to pinholes and things of that nature, air pockets, and it just damages the look and the overall fit and finish of the car. So Bondo has received a horrible reputation. When there are huge dents like this was caved in, Bondo is not to be used there. If the vehicle is rusted out, Bondo is not to be used there. Bondo is great when it's used as a body filler to make things straight. Now, going back to the history, I see some shops, I hear guys comment on my stuff. Oh, you need to use lead. You need to use soldering process on that car. That car's a 55. That car's a 62, and do it the right way with lead. Well, first of all, that's not the right way. Who says it's the right way? You? It's not the right way. It was a way prior to the war. So you're talking about, in the late 30s, things of that nature. That's what individuals used. And then even after the war, they start using it. But Bondo came out in 1955 by a World War veteran. Came out with Bondo in 1955. But the soldering process back in the day, as my kids would say, back in the day, Daddy. So back in the day, in the 30s and in the 20s and even in the early 40s, the metal was different. The metal was thicker. And so when you heated that metal through the soldering process, it was fine. And if you're a purist restoration person and you want to go through all of the historical steps to restore the car, to put everything back just like it was, then I think you should solder. I think you should do that. That would be true, provided the car is a pre-war car. I don't think it's true for a post-war car. So I don't think that's the truth there. Then after that, they came up with a product that was plastic-based. So I'm somewhere in the late 40s now, a plastic-based product. And one of the most famous products was called Black Magic. And that Black Magic product, it worked extremely well in comparison to the soldering process, because after the war, what happened to the metal shape changed, the contours of the cars changed, the panels became longer, and the metal became thinner. Now, there was great strength still in the metal, but technology had allowed the metal to become thinner. The negative side was when you heated up the metal, what would it do? It would warp things. And so they had to come up with a product and that's part of why they got away from the solder. So then they came up with that Black Magic, and that Black Magic worked fairly decent. Then in 55, they came up with the Bondo. Now, again, the problem with the Bondo is to be pressed out firmly and thinly. So when you're building up a car, you're taking it from epoxy, now you're building it up with bodywork. You don't want to go any more. You don't have to go, but you don't want to go any more than a 1/4 inch thick. If you were going more than a 1/4 inch thick, you're putting too much on. And so a lot of individuals who are doing bodywork, first of all, you can't start with cars that are dented in and caved in. You can't start with cars with poor foundations. See, Bondo does not prevent rust from coming through. So that's the other bad side of Bondo. So you know this car is all rusted out, so then you put a coat of Bondo all over the car. Well, that's not going to stop the rust from coming. The rust is going to come right back through the Bondo. I purchased a 69 C10 truck from I'm going to call him a young kid. I'm a little older, but a young kid, he spent probably about $12,000 to $15,000 in the paint job. Beautiful truck. And it had these pimples all over it. These pimples, I mean, all over the car, just full of pimples. Why did it have the pimples? Because Bondo cannot prevent the rust from coming out. And the rust will come out within about 6 months. So now let's come back to the story. I got to get back down to the white meat first. Once I get down to the white meat, I want to check my car. I want to see where my rust concerns are. This 56 sedan delivered, man, this stuff is right, man. Somebody has taken care of this car. They've taken care of the rust before. Makes our job much, much easier. Thanking them for that, and we're excited to get on this car. So then I'm going to use an epoxy primer. If you want to do it my way, get you some epoxy primer. I've tried self-etching primer. I've done the red oxide. I've done all kinds of sealers. But when I've done the research, the best thing to do is get you a high quality. If you're not spending over $100, you got the wrong epoxy primer. So you want to get you a good quality, somewhere around about $200 or something like that. Get you a good quality epoxy primer. Seal that whole car in epoxy primer. Now, if I was doing metal work, and I have a little bit to do on this car, then I'm going to do my metal work. And once I do my metal work, I'm not even worried about putting it in self-etching primer. See, guys use cans of self-etching primer. For what? So do your metal work on top of the epoxy. Once your metal work is complete, clean everything up, and then come back and hit those spots again to seal that raw metal in an epoxy primer. So once you do that, then you have to come back and you start doing the body work. So Bondo or body fillers have a bad name, and I hear restoration shops or so-called restoration gurus say, well, I don't like Bondo in my shop. And I'm like, well, how the hell are you going to smooth the car out? You have to have a body filler. And body filler is not a wrong term. It's a correct term when you're doing body work and you want to make these panels straight. You want to make these panels true. But going back to the Bondo, you have to start with a true foundation, which means there is no rust back. True foundation. If there are huge dents and you got to do some hammer and dolly work. You got to get this metal as true as you can before you start using the Bondo. And if you're doing that, then you can rest assured that you got a good product. I'm going to see this dent over here. I don't think we taken care of that dent yet. yeah. I see you got that dent out. All right, so if you look at the previous video, there was a big old dent here. And now, are there some imperfections here in this door? Yeah, I can feel them all in my hand. There's some imperfections there. But there's not any more that I really need to do from a metalworking perspective. There's nothing more for me to do. And I can feel some of those imperfections. There's nothing for me to do there. But I got a product. I use 3M in my shop. Now 3M is good product. Now this modern body filler that we use now, it's a resin, primarily a polyester resin that's added with a hardener. And when you put that together, you mix those in the proper ratios. The other thing you find a lot of, especially old school body men, give a shout out to Harris James. Man, I give Harris James some of this old 3M Bondo. First of all, he didn't like it. Then he wants to put polyester putter in it and all kinds of cream in it, trying to make it true. So what happens sometimes with the old school body guys, they're right or wrong, they're so used to using the cheap Bondo, the cheap body filler, and so what they'll do, this is over $100, and so they'll use the cheap Bondo, say for $40, but it doesn't have the properties in there. It's not creamy, it's not smooth, so it's difficult to work with. So then there are additives and products you can buy on the market for $15 or $20, and for years they've always had to add that in the Bondo, and it becomes a technique that the old heads, the old schools know how to do, and it makes a weaker Bondo. It makes it a better Bondo, but not quite as good as 3M. 3M has already done the science on all of that. So when you mix this properly, and this is not a video for 3M, we talk about city classic cars and how to build cars, but your products matter. I say this all the time. Products matter, and you have to start with great products. And if you do not have great products, and if you do not have a great process, then how in the world are you going to have a great end result? So you got to have a great product, you have to have a great process, and then those two things combined together with the proper skilled labor, you should end up with a great product at the end. But if you cheat on your product, if you don't have professional labor, and you don't have the correct process, like I talked about, get down to the white meat. Get down to the white meat, go ahead and inspect your vehicle over, see what you're looking at. Put the vehicle in epoxy primer. After you get the vehicle in epoxy primer, then start your metal work. Once you finish your metal work, those raw places, put them back. That's called process. Put it back in epoxy primer. Once you get in an epoxy primer, do your body work right on top of the epoxy primer. Now, of course, before you paint and all that, once you get in, then you're gonna use some 2K. You're gonna use a 2K primer once you're on top of your body work, and that's kind of how the process works. Because you can't paint on raw body work. So once the body work is right, the body work is true, you can't paint on raw body work. So then you're gonna have to put some 2K primer on there and keep blocking things of that nature. But I want to talk about Bondo today, and because that's the phase we're at now. We're about to build this car up, and I'm excited about it. It's a great project. Now we've already removed the glass. We removed the glass so that we can get some of those intimate trouble areas. We're taking care of those intimate trouble areas on the car that are hard to get to. And man, I'm ready to rock and roll. I bet you can hear it in my voice. I'm excited. I'm ready to do what we do on this thing. And I'm ready to put our better products, our better process, and our better professionals to work. And it's going to end up with pretty high-end product at the end. All right, y'all be safe out there. Just wanted to give you some levity in your day, give you an update, and let you know what's going on with this 1956 sedan Delivery built by City Classic Cars. God bless you.